Right.
Right.
Welcome everybody to November's session on regenerative leadership and other interesting topics along the way. Great to have all of you here. I thought I'd start our call with just a couple of paragraphs from Michael Mead, who runs a podcast called The Living Myth. And this particular podcast that's coming up is called The Origins of Gratitude. And I thought that, well, given the fact that Thanksgiving is coming up for the US anyway, that this might be a nice way of centering ourselves for today. So, this episode of The Living Myth begins with the ancient Mayan myth about the first human ancestors being shaped from corn. Far from being random creatures, humans were created to bring missing ingredients into the world. The missing ingredients included a conscious awareness of the wonder of creation, a sense of gratitude and thankfulness, and a potential for imagination and genuine vision. Central to the role of humans was the capacity to be thankful for the gift of life. Thus, people all over the earth have created ceremonies and practices of gratitude and thanksgiving. The idea of giving thanks and the word thankfulness comes from the old root word grazia, which gives us gratitude as well as grace. In that sense, what we seek in giving thanks are moments of gratitude that can bring a sense of grace back into the world. And this can happen in small ways that do not require large gatherings, an abundance of food, or any pretension that everyone might agree on life's great issues. More than ever, we need occasions of grace and gratitude, however small they may be. We need moments of wholeness to rekindle our spirits and to ease our souls. We need to feel that life, despite that all of the existing divisions and heated conflicts remains a holy place, a place where healing remains possible. When the world keeps turning upside down, it can be time to look and feel deeper inside in order to find the people and aspects of life that we are most grateful for. Sometimes that's all we need to do in order to reconnect and contribute to the holiness of life. In doing that, we can ease the burden of our own hearts. We can also connect to the original sense of humanity and enable more grace to enter the world. Pretty nice, huh?
Nice.
That's
Right.
Michael Mead. He always has these kind of intriguing things to offer and that make you think. And today, so I want to, we're trying to practice moments of rest in our calls. And so in order to do that, we took a month off in July for rest. We're going to take December off for rest, and we'll reconnect in January with Marty Singelman, who is a consultant who helps people through a 4-year journey towards deeper and greater consciousness. And so she's going to talk about her work on the third Tuesday in January, which is January 16th at 1 p.m. Central. And I want to introduce Jackie Fletcher, who I've known for quite a while. And she's always doing interesting things and evolving. So when I first met her, she was doing health and healing work with doctors and nurses, and this was before COVID, trying to help them bring a more sense of balance into their lives and their practice. But she has evolved since then, and her I knew her when she was establishing Heartwood Healing, which was the title of her consulting firm at that time. And now that's evolved to Heartwood Leadership Institute. And so she's working and consulting with Fortune 50 companies, helping them, helping to teach leaders how to do hard things that take a long time to come to fruition, which is exactly what we need in this moment in time. So I'm going to let Jackie share what she's currently thinking about and doing and sharing with that group of people and others to see how her wisdom can inform ours. So thank you, Jackie, for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy. And hello, everyone. I am so excited to be here with everyone. I am a big fan of Kathy and how she thinks about the world. And so I know that if you all are connected to her, that we're all going to be best friends too. So we are all kindred spirits. And I just so grateful for our friendship over the years, and everything that you've taught me. I still vividly remember being at an event that you did here at the Arboretum, and you had tasked us with going out onto the land to kind of see what the land was going to teach us. And it was probably spring, or I think it must have been spring, because it was still cold, but the snow had gone. And I went out into this field, I'll never forget it. And there was all this brown grass, that had been over the winter. It was just still kind of dead and there. And I laid down on the ground and closed my eyes and was just listening to the wind and listening to the footsteps of people walking by. And I don't know how long I was there kind of meditating in this space and taking it all in. But when I opened my eyes, there was a vulture circling right above my head. And it was just profound. It was a profound message, right? About, and I immediately sat up and was like, hello, it's fine. But I just really started thinking about, what is the metaphor of that? What is the message of that? And I love that nature speaks to us in metaphor. I often use nature when I think, Murph, you were telling us that you're bringing, students, young people out into nature. And I am a big believer in doing that. My own daughter, I got her into the Boundary Waters, as a very young, which is a huge, bio reserve basically here between Minnesota and Canada. That I got her at a girls leadership program, and she's been going every summer. And now she wants to do this 2-month canoe trip to the Arctic. I'm like, oh my gosh. So, and she recently wrote a poem about it. And I'm so proud. She wrote this poem, and her thesis of it was so hard, but so good. And she kept repeating that through her poem. It was so hard, but so good. And I've been thinking about that a lot lately, because I work with leaders who come to me saying, I have a team that they fall apart. The minute something hard comes along, they, abandon the goal. They emotionally can't stabilize within a challenge. And so I'm called upon, whether it's in healthcare or whether it's in, Fortune 50 companies, I'm called upon to help people build strength, to help people build resilience, right? And still I'm doing that work around resilience. But now I'm just calling it something slightly different. And so the way that I've really been talking about my work lately is that I spark the heart of dragons. And I teach people how to dream it and build it and do it in a way that bursts open strength and that catalyzes resiliency and fuels commitment. So that's what I've been saying recently, because we all know who the dragons are. Right? The dragons in our lives are the ones who set those big goals. They take bold actions. They go through hard things and emerge having learned something, right? These are the most resilient among us. Turns out we all have the capacity to be resilient wired within us. And I think that it is something that can be taught and practiced. So what I find myself doing more and more and more with groups and as a speaker, I call myself an inspirational and motivational speaker. And I had this experience recently that I'll be telling you about that helped me develop the heart of a dragon. But I've been developing the heart of a dragon my whole life, because I learned how to do really hard things, both professionally and personally. I built my own company. I've had a company for 22 years. I have built giant shows for executives at Fortune 50 companies. I've lost 100 pounds that I kept off for 20 years. And most recently, in that dumpster fire of a year of 2020, I went through breast cancer treatment when the world shut down, and have had to learn how to recover from that. And so today, what I wanted to do was to, to really lead you through a structure that we're going to do together. And so you get to have this time. I'm hopeful that it is a restful, rejuvenating experience for everyone. You may have experienced parts of it in the past in different capacities. And I've woven things together in a way that I have found works again and again and again for every kind of group I present to. So what we're going to do first is, you've probably heard about visualization. Yes. Yes. Yeah. So I first learned about visualization when I was a young writer. I have been trained as an artist. That was my early training. And I had Andre Dubusse III was my professor in graduate school. He wrote The House of Sand and Fog, among many other best-selling and award-winning books. And one of the things I'll never forget is he had us in class one afternoon, and he was giving us this assignment. And he said, okay, I want you to describe walking up to your childhood home. And so he called on a young woman to do that out loud in front of the class. And she starts saying, well, okay, I get out of the car and I walk up the sidewalk and, go up the steps, and there's a porch. And so I go into the porch and I, open the front door. And he says, no. He said, you didn't tell the truth. And she's like, what do you mean? Yes, I told the truth. He's like, no, you didn't tell us. You did not tell us the truth. And he said, you need to go there. So he had us all do this together. He had us close our eyes and he had us breathe deeply. And this was 30 some years ago. He had us breathe very deeply and imagine, take ourselves there in the visual center of the brain. Imagine walking up to your childhood home so that you re-experience it. And this is what we know by the way of gratitude practices, that if you link this practice to a gratitude, something you're grateful for, and you re-experience it, that's how you rewire the brain. So he had us do this. He said, I want you to do this. He's leading us through this thing. See it, feel it, sense it. What is present in that moment in time? And I can't remember what she said, but I do remember where I went. And so I'll tell you what I said. And what I said was, we pull up in the brown station wagon. I put my feet onto the concrete sidewalk. It was cracked in all of these places. There were dandelions growing out of the cracks. I'm walking up, there's like these 3 huge slabs of concrete, and I hear something really loud flying overhead. And I look up and there's this massive plane flying over me. It's the loudest thing I've ever heard. It's so close to me. And all of a sudden, I swallow this giant wad of bubble gum. And I could feel this terror rising in me. Oh my gosh, I've swallowed bubble gum. It's going to live in my stomach for 7 years. It was a completely different experience of that moment. I could feel the terror. I could hear the sound of the airplane. I could see the dandelions in the sidewalk. That's telling the truth, right? That is reliving the experience. It is embodying the experience of visualizing something. So there's really interesting research on visualization that we know that if you want to learn something, like when I wanted to learn how to drive a stick shift, I visualized it over and over and over again in my head. And then when I went back to try it again, I could do it after having failed and failed and failed and failed. But when I visualized it in my mind, practiced it over and over again, I could do it. But there's really interesting research that says if you visualize something, your brain thinks you've already done it. And so your motivation to do the thing goes down, right? And so if it's something that's it's going to take you a long time to do, if you use visualization in any way, it will actually harm your chances in pulling it off. So I worked with Weight Watchers as an example, as one of my clients. And if you just visualize yourself healthy, your motivation to get healthy is going to go down. So what we're going to do today is something that I teach all kinds of audiences, where we're going to combine a bunch of things. Some of this work is sparked by Gabrielle Ottingen, who is an amazing psychologist. And she's done some really interesting research. If you wanted to do her method and really deepen into it, we're going to do some of her method and we're going to shake things up. So the first thing I would love to have you do is just to write down, if you have a piece of paper or pen, that would be great. If you are going to use a digital device, that's fine. I always prefer paper and pen because it does different things to our brain and the textures of the, the movement of things. But whatever you've got handy, please pull that out and write down something that you want, whether that's professionally or personally or both. But we're going to just focus on one thing today for the exercise. So something that you want, just write it down in a couple of, in a sentence, a phrase. Something that you want. So, and then whenever you're finished, if you just look up and then I'll know that you're complete. Or a thumbs up. Thank you, Emily. Perfect. Okay. So now that we're going to do the second part of the exercise, this is where we're going to do some visualization. So I want you to just sit in your chair where you get yourself nice and cozy. And what we're going to do in these exercises is we're going to be bouncing back and forth between the visual part of the brain and the language center of the brain. So take a nice couple of deep breaths. If this works for you, you might feel your all core four corners of your feet on the floor. You might feel the back of your chair, so your back is nice, kind of resting against the back of that chair. You might close your eyes. It sometimes is easier to do this kind of exercise if your eyes are closed. And then just take those nice deep breaths all the way down into the belly. And just kind of settle the body down. And then whenever you're ready, I just want you to bring into your imagination the moment, the day when you have completed, you have achieved this want of yours has come true. And I want you to see it. I want you to feel it. So I want you to use your senses in this. What do you see, feel, hear, taste, experience in your body? And we're going to be here for a few moments. Whenever you have seen it, Take your time, then write down what you saw. What did you see? Then write it out. Storytelling, we're always looking for those specific details. So as you're telling the story of what you saw, what specific details come to mind? The next part of the writing portion is to think about what obstacles are in your path to achieve this thing that you want. Those obstacles can be internal or external obstacles. So I'm working on a new book, and some of my obstacles are internal, like procrastination. Some of them are external. I really feel like I want to clean my house right now instead of write. So external, sometimes our obstacles are other people. Sometimes there's circumstances. So write down, what are your obstacles to this thing that you want? Does everybody have an obstacle they can work with? Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back over to the right side and we're going to settle back into the body. So if you settle back into your chair, take some nice deep breaths. And this time, I want you to bring into your imagination the vision of yourself as you are now, with what you're wearing, what you look like. Bring yourself into your imagination. And then imagine this obstacle and imagine how you're going to meet it. See yourself overcoming it, moving through it, dealing with it. I want you to see yourself. How do you meet this obstacle and overcome it? And at your own pace, just return to the writing and start writing. If this happens, then I will ... If this happens, then I will ... Write a whole list of if-thens. And as soon as you're finished with the if-thens, pop back over into the body. And again, see yourself using one of those tools and meeting it in the visual center of the brain. And yes, Emily, please just pick one to do your visualization around. Yeah. If we spend more time and you have time to do a couple, feel free, but really just see yourself. So first writing, and just write down as many if-thens as you can think of. And then we're going to pop back over to the visual. So if, then. So when you start to go back and forth like this between the language and the visual centers of the brain, what you're doing is you're turning on the reticular activating system in the brain, which is the part of the brain that when you decide you want to purchase a red car, you suddenly see every red car is on the road. You suddenly start to see the answers to the problem that you are working to overcome. The brain helps you see the answers that you're trying to overcome. So the if-then pairings are: if I face an obstacle, then I will. If I face this, then I will. If I keep finding that I have to clean my house instead of write my novel or my book or whatever, then I am going to the coffee shop so I can get out of my house and I'm going to write there. So this is that brainstorming part. If I keep popping up from the desk when I'm trying to write my book, then I'm going to set a timer for 10 minutes where I have to write straight through. Right? If I, so it's any of those, if there's a person that's the issue, then I'm going to have a conversation with, etc. Like so what are you going to do to meet those obstacles? If, then. Okay. And it's important to both write it and intellectualize it and also see it and sense it and feel it in the body. Okay. This back and forth. That's the goal here. Okay. Questions, thoughts, comments so far? Yeah.
I've been doing loads of this work in the past, what you're saying. And it totally works this. And I've used this kind of stuff, not exactly the same way you've done it, but what you're actually doing is trying to communicate with the inner monkey, what I call the inner monkey. And the inner monkey can't tell the difference between reality and what it's, can't tell the difference between reality and thought. So the way what you're saying does work, it's the same way when you're watching a horror movie. I don't watch them because it scares the life out of me.
Yeah.
but the reason why, because your inner monkey can't tell that, consciously that there's no zombies at the door type of thing. But but your inner monkey can't tell the difference. So your body goes into that thing. And that's what I call the inner monkey. Obviously, it's not the name, but that's why this works. It does work the way you're saying it. And I've used it with getting people over confidence issues on horse riding where they're absolutely petrified, where I've been coming to help them get over this by doing what you're doing, similar kind of stuff. And they're thrown up basically before I've got there. And then by the end of the process, you're actually riding around quite happy.
Yes.
Just thought your inner monkey can't tell the difference between reality and thought. So that's what what you're programming. So
that's exactly right. And thank you so much for bringing that up. And that's kind of part one, right? That's part one. Because if you're going after something long, that's going to take you a long time, that isn't enough, right? That's the place to start. And so now we're going to shift into how do you maintain that, right? Because we know that they've done all these really fascinating studies, right? Where you read a novel and your brain lights up in exactly the same way as though you're actually experiencing it. They've also done studies with speakers who get up on stage and they describe something to a group, an audience, and their brains light up in the same way that the speaker's brain lights up, as though they are experiencing it in their bodies. And that's just so wild to me. And it has limitations. And so the limitations are, but what if what I want is going to take a really, really long time? It took a very long time to lose 100 pounds. It took years for me to recover from breast cancer. And so that's where, it took years to build my company. And so, that's where I'm looking at a society that is trained on devices that are shortening our attention span. How do we maintain the ability, the strength, and the stamina to go after these big dreams with bold actions, right? How do we do that? So this is part of the way in. It's visualizing this, it's priming the brain, it's priming the body, but it's also priming the negative. Because once you start saying, what obstacles am I going to face? You're then saying to the brain, no, we haven't accomplished this yet. Continue to help me scan my environment for solutions. So that's why we do this if-then part. So then where we go from there is what I absolutely love, and I'm sure that you all have done similar versions of this too. It's one of my favorite. I've been doing it since I was in my 20s. And it's where we do a mind map, and I'm just going to blow this up for you for a second, of how are we going to get there. So this is the build part. Everybody can see that okay? This is the build part. So I always put in the middle what I want. And then I break it down into the smallest possible pieces. So what do you want? And then this is a fantastic, and I take this, I fill out this big middle bubble. I put all the things around it that I think I'm going to need. So when I wanted to write my first book, I put, I want to publish a book. I want to write and publish a book, and I put, write the book in one of my bubbles. I put, find a literary agent in another one of my bubbles. These are all things, some of which I didn't have any idea how to do them. And so then I put another bubble over after the second one and another bubble, however many bubbles I needed to get to the very smallest possible action. And so then you build your plan, because this is what I call the architecture part, right? You architect how you're going to get this thing. Now, there's no guarantee that you're going to get what you want, right? Because life happens. You get sidetracked. It's just not possible for you. Somebody else gets it before you do. There's all sorts of reasons why people don't get what they want. But when we build this structure, it raises the chances, right, that you're going to get it. And it also does this really beautiful psychological trick where it gives you those small wins. And so if you break these down into the very smallest pieces, then you get these small wins that keep the brain happy, that keep you going when it's hard, when it's long. And so there was a study done with researchers who were publishing more than anyone. And they were like, what are these people doing differently than people who are not publishing very many articles? And they were writing, they were doing their work toward those goals in 10-minute chunks a day or 15-minute chunks a day. They were not, creating some masterful thing and then setting aside entire days to do the thing. They were doing 10 minutes consistently, day after day after day after day. There's nothing sexy about that. Not at all. But it is those small wins that at the end of the day, you get that dopamine hit that's like, whoa, I did it. And so a lot of times people will leave a cliffhanger of some kind. So if you're a mystery novel writer or reader or a thriller reader, that authors will leave a cliffhanger at the end. And you can do that for yourself in your work if you leave something exciting for it to start the next day and whatever the project looks like. So it's another strategy you can use to help yourself go after very challenging goals. The other thing that I love about this, so we're talking about dreaming and then building this plan, and of course, then doing the plan, working the plan. And again, that's where this breaking it down into these very small little discrete chunks comes into play. I want to tell you a couple of stories about times that I have used this process, because it's obvious when you're building something at work that this is a clear path to getting something done. But it's also something that you can use in your personal life. And so, as I mentioned earlier, I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2020. And so there were a lot of really discrete things that I would do to help recover. So that's the recovery from that experience is pretty intense, both from a physical and mental perspective. And so one of the things that I did, I'm going to show you, there's this picture I have of the Masonic Cancer Center, which is where I received my treatment. And they had this absolutely stunning, still have this beautiful slate staircase that goes up to the second floor. There's these gorgeous windows, as you can see. They have all this art, and they have a piano that's up there that plays music. It's just gorgeous. But nobody wants to go to the second floor. And so one of the things that I did early on in treatment that really helped is I thought, okay, how far can I go? I can go one of these steps at a time. I can just take one of these steps at a time. And my goal was always to walk to the second floor, to not take the elevator, because the more sick you become, the more people take the elevator. And for me, this was a way that I was like, I'm going to walk every time I come here to that second floor, if I can, but I'm going to do it one step at a time. And each step was its own moment. And if I had to stop and rest, right here, okay, that's fine. And not allowing judgment or critiques or any of that stuff into my brain. Just, hey, we're just going to stop right here. And so one of the pieces of dreaming and building and doing it that I love expressing and making sure that people hear loudly is this does not come with judgment. This process must not include harmful judgment of the self or criticism of the self. Helpful critiques, yes. Helpful redirection, sure. Not the toxic self-flagellating version of the inner voice that can happen for some of us. So one step at a time. So the other thing that happened when I was coming out of treatment was that I developed a frozen shoulder as one of my things. I've always been a very athletic person, and at the time, I could not walk down to my mailbox and back when I was coming out of treatment, and so I had a frozen shoulder, all kinds of things, and I was meeting with a physical therapist, and my physical therapist said, well, I think there's this group, I think they'll help you. They're called the Dragon Divas. Have you ever heard of the Dragon Divas? And I had not. And she told me that they are a breast cancer team. You have to have had breast cancer to join. And they race dragon boats. And so I was like, I've never even heard of that, but it's a team that helps you rehab your body. So I called them up. And I said, tell me more about this. I had no idea what a dragon boat even was. And when I talked to the woman who started it, Mary Skripek, I found out that it was there's a team in St. Paul. It's a support group, but it is also a team of athletes working to get their bodies back. Not, an athlete, meaning just anybody who wants to move their bodies. And they were going to New Zealand to race against 4,000 other breast cancer survivors from 21 different countries. And that they were doing it. It was supposed to be in 2022. And I signed up to go to New Zealand before I had ever been in a boat, because I knew that was a big dream to go after. And so then I had to set about architecting how I was going to do it and then doing it. And so you'll see here we are in New Zealand, and I'll just let that play. One of the oldest members of the teams in New Zealand was in her 80s. There are men and women racing, because men can also get breast cancer. On our team, there are no males, but they certainly can. There I am in a red PFD, but you'll see us. This is a practice run. And there we go. This is very, very hard to do. My physical therapist told me that she used to work with a bunch of the athlete teams in town, soccer teams and football teams. And she said whenever she wanted to make the athletes cry, she would turn an exercise bike upside down and have them put on the resistance and use their arms to move the exercise bike. This is hard and so good. So hard and so good. There have been moments in that boat where I'm like, why am I doing this? This is ridiculous. I never want to do this again. It's so hard, but it is so good. So when you want to go after something big, which all of us, I would argue on this call, who are going for regenerative leadership, who want to change organizations to be healthier, to help be better for the environment and better for our people, that's going to take a while, my friends. It is hard work we are doing. And so whenever I work with people who are doing that big work, it is hard and it is good. And there are going to be moments when you're going to fail in your courage, in your ability, in your fuel, in your hope, all of those things, you're going to fail. And so I wanted to play this little video because to me, dreaming and building and doing is a structure that supports you, that can catch you whenever you want to continue to dream it and build it and do it and dream it and build it and do it. It catches you. So here is the metaphor of dreaming and building and doing. If we can get that thing to go, here we go. Come on, honey. Hold on. Sometimes it takes a moment. Okay, hold on. We're going to get out of this and I am going to play it in a different way. Just bear with me. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to put my share back on. So I'm going to blow this up so you can see it better.
Wow.
That's great. I love it.
Oh, I love that one so much.
Great.
So, of course, what we need to do hard things, we have these tools, all of these beautiful tools. But we also, like, what I love about that movie so much, that film, that performance so much, is that he's having fun. Like, it's so graceful. It's so joyful and playful. And so I want to leave you, and I want to open it up for a moment or two, but I want to leave you with an exercise that if you have time after the call to do this one, it's incredibly powerful. You've probably all done values exercises, yes? Where you circle the word on the page and it's like that whole list of words and you're like, yeah, okay, this. I have never in all my life found that helpful. And I really believe in coaching, and my executive coach led me through an exercise that was just revelatory for me. And so I want to leave this with you to do, because what it does is it helps you create more of that into doing the hard thing. So I want you to, and I'm just thinking here, actually, we have a moment or two to do this. If you to just, I'd love you to close your eyes for one more minute and think about a peak moment in your life. It can come from your personal life or your professional life, doesn't matter, but a peak, pinnacle, top moment in your life where it was just, yes. So close your eyes and see if you can see that. See it in your mind for a second. One of the best moments of your entire life. And the homework part is to write it down, exactly what you saw, and to look for your values in that story. Look for what you value in that story. So when I did that exercise, I saw myself in a dragon boat. And I saw myself, I am both a paddler and a steer. And so I saw myself kind of jumping around in both of those roles, but I saw myself in that boat. And when I told myself the story, and you can also do this with a partner, by the way, if you have somebody in your life that you want to do this back and forth, you tell the story out loud to them and they listen to it and repeat it back to you. Okay. So you're going to write it down, or you can be with a partner and have the partner say your story back to you. And you're going to listen or you're going to read for your values. So when I heard my story repeated back to me, I heard a thing that was, I love the rhythm and music of the moment. Because of the rhythm of the boat, you can hear the rhythm, you can sense it, you can feel the boat moving, right? The trust of my team. I love being the steer person, encouraging and inspiring people, having fun, kindness and compassion, and tapping into the magnificence of all that is, like awe. That all of those are my personal values that came out of this one moment I described in the boat. And so now I use this list to make every decision about the big dreams I want to go after. Mm. Does it have the rhythm and music of life in it? And I just put on a conference for 1,600 executives, and my gosh, there was the rhythm and music of the moment in that. The trust of my team was present. I got to be the steer person, so all of those things were present in those moments. And if you go back over your life and look at the hardest moments or the hardest projects, you're going to find some of those things are not ticked off. So some of those boxes are not ticked. So this is another way that you can look at every moment when you're going for that big thing that you're dreaming and building and doing toward. Are these values of mine, the things I value and cherish? Is it part of this experience? And if not, how can I make them be part of it? Okay, cool. Mm. We have just another minute or two. Do you have any questions or thoughts?
Jackie, it's a mechanical question really, but when you describe the build it and the mind map, circles, when you said, so write a book or there's this really big thing we call them the bags or big audacious goals, sometimes that end up in the middle of those things. And then you have some of the circles. And then you said you went on to you built maps off of that. You built sometimes separate circles, separate dots, or some of those other dots or those other subcircles had subcircles, right? Whatever made sense is in terms of the diagramming process.
Yeah. So what I would do, it kind of depends on the project, but you can use Miro now, which is fantastic for doing mind mapping.
Yeah, it is.
But what I would do is I would just take, for instance, find a literary agent. And I broke that down in as many ways as I possibly could. So like that, each of those circles, I would then break into smallest things so that I could get to a place where I could put something on my calendar today to do. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the final piece of that. I'm so glad you brought that up because that's the other part. You have to put it on your calendar for today. It's so small. It's literally so small. I can do it after we get off this call. That's what I would want you to drill it down to. That's what I mean when we talk about the people who are the most published people, we're writing in 10-minute chunks. How can you break what you want to do down into the very smallest possible thing? Yeah. Yep. And so it's kind of up to you how you want to break out those bubbles, but I will often do one kind of main brainstorm where I kind of think of everything I can possibly think of and I get really messy with it and I get a giant piece of paper or I do it on Miro board, but I love paper and pen. So I get a huge piece of poster board and just everything I can think of. And then I start to winnow it down from there. So I'm not overwhelmed. And I say, what am I going to start first?
Yeah.
I'm going to pick this thing to start first, or these two things. 3 at the very most. at the very top, right? That's those Kanban boards, right? It's like you want no more than 3 things. And so what are those 3? So if I break my stuff down. So what are the 3 things I'm going to do every single day? And that's it. I'm not going to do anything else. And it's amazing what builds over time with those 3 little things. And 10 minutes stretches into 2 hours if you get caught up, right? And you're in flow. Yeah, great question. Thank you.
Hey, Jacquelyn, beautiful. Thank you for sharing this and the practices, making it super interactive. And I'm just curious, especially the video was such a great demonstration of an embodied awareness of the experience of life, both visually watching it, but if I was on those stairs learning how to do that, my body would have an experience of the challenge, the difficulty, falling off, getting back on. So as you go into the mind mapping and this idea beyond the thinking mind, how do you come back? Because once you start linearizing everything,
Mhm.
I'm going to do this, it's back up heavy into the mind. So what is your advice or practice to come back in the body when you're still building the stuff that you're saying, the building and doing? So it doesn't
Great.
stay all wrapped in the head, and then back into my procrastination. How do you
Yeah.
come back to the body? What with the project? What do
Yeah.
you recommend?
First of all, great question. And the way that I do that is I just do all the mind stuff, like I said, so it's this big thing. And then how I start doing, I use my body for discernment. So I'll go into, if I'm choosing between like, where do I even begin? What's the place that I start? I use my body to help me find my way. I will close my eyes, I will calm my body, and I will literally go into it and say, what feels the best? What feels the juiciest? What feels the most, urgent? And I'll just feel it like in my body. The other thing I'll do sometimes too, is I'll almost imagine like I've got 2 circles on the ground. And one circle is this choice, and the other circle is that choice about what I'm going to do first. And I'll just literally move my body into that circle when I'm standing and see how it feels. How does my body feel? And then I'll move into my other circle and say, how does this feel? And I'll just literally use my body as a discernment tool.
Great.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Nice. Yeah. I like that. And that's where nature can add an extra
Yeah.
juice to the process of doing that also out in nature and bringing that conscious practice to get more clear, even by using the divine energy of the natural world. Sometimes
Absolutely.
that'll help. If me trying to do my body thing inside my house, I can sometimes just clear myself in the space when I go outside.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, even if you just got this all down on paper and then went for a walk or went for a sit or went for a kayak or went for a hike, or, you'll come back with the discernment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Other comments
We
or thoughts?
are out of time. So
Okay.
I just, this was so wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your practice and your evolution and how that's changing the way you interact with life.
Well, thank you for having me. Such
Very
a wonderful crowd. I love working with you, Kathy, and all of the people connected to you.
Yeah, really great.
Yeah, thank you.
And
Beautiful.
we'll see everybody in
Jacquelyn.
January in the new year. And I will send to anybody that wants, I'll send you that Michael Mead piece. So just let me know.
Yeah, send it to us, our email list. Thank you. I'd like to see that.
Super.
Great.
I love this. This was great. And it was very helpful for me personally too. So thank you so much for the practice session too. That's all
You're
great.
welcome. Good.
So I hope everybody has an opportunity to bring some gratitude into their life over the next 6 weeks or more. And so hard, so good. Yeah. And help us feel more whole inside. So thank you so much. Great.
Thank you. I got to run.
Thanks,
Be
everyone.
well.
Thank
Be
you.
well. Bye, everyone. See ya.
Thank you.
Folks.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
That
Thank
was
you.
awesome.
It was really great. And I
Thank you.
love the back and forth on the right and left brain too. That Lenny, who's
Kathy, you want to
he's-
quit recording? I'm just saying.
oh yeah, thank you.